The next one I want you to think about is in Matthew 21, verse 12. And in this chapter, this verse here, Jesus flips the tables, right? So he goes into the temple on Holy Week, and he finds the money changers' tables, right? Now, I want you to appreciate what's going on here. Jesus goes in, and with these money changers, it's kind of the same idea. Whenever I go overseas, almost always you have to change money. You get to the airport, you need to get the local currency, and you change dollars for whatever it is. And I know that the more money I change, the better rate I get. The less money I change, the worse rate I get. Make sense to you? And those people who change money for you, they're not there just to be polite, like friendly and helpful to accommodate tourists. That's not why they do that. They're there to make money, right? So they charge a rate on how much you change. And so I appreciate the practicality of it. But at this time in history, what was happening, and particularly in the temple, and you got to think this is Passover week. And so you have people coming to Jerusalem to celebrate and worship in the temple. And no matter what, they always had these money changers who were there to take people's money and change it into the temple currency. And why would you need temple currency? Because this is how you would buy your sacrifice or your offering using temple currency. Make sense to you? Like when you're in the temple, you got to have the temple money. And so these money changers, they took advantage. They took advantage of God's house and turned it into a transactional exchange. And if you think about it, Jesus had to flip the tables because that's not, transaction is never what God has had in mind for humanity from the outset. God never intended for you to come to him with your credit card, with your best behavior, you're compliant, all the stuff, so that you could get something out of God. God has never intended our relationship with him to be just transactional. God has always intended our relationship with God to be intimate, connected, and relational, not just transactional. Now, I'm not saying that, you can, act like the devil and whatever. Do all the right stuff. Have good, moral, upstanding behaviors. I'm all for that. But if that's the premise of your relationship with God, then it becomes transactional. You give, you get. And that's in part why Jesus flipped the tables. Because he said, I never intended for this to be, number one, take advantage of people based on God's presence, God's house. And number two, I never intended this to be a transactional relationship. And so I like this whole idea of table talk because the first one, Jesus turns the tables, and we get to see and experience Jesus having a different perspective and a true perspective in reality, as opposed to Simon's idea. And then we see Jesus flips the tables. I like that one because he kind of upended the apple cart, right? He came in and cleaned house and said, my house will be a house of prayer and worship, not a house of transaction. But the last table, and this is the third one, so 1 is turn, 2 is flip, and 3 is join.